I think they put me after lunch because I have a lot of energy and you're going to get a sleep coma. So I'm here to wake you up. First off, thanks to the ForwardJS organizers. They're awesome. I don't know why they let me keep coming back every year, but they do. So joke's on them. But no, seriously, they're awesome. And all the AV guys, all the crew, amazing. Thank you. And special shout out to my friend Pat. Just got married today. Round of applause, Pat and Nico. Practical service workers. Yeah, this is a complex topic, but it's also simple. It's simple, but not easy. Two different things. And how I got started on this was my friend Sarah Fetterman. She was out looking for a job in the Bay Area, and she's telling me about all these insulting coding interviews. Like, some of these questions are just so bad and insulting. So I thought, being a citizen of this great country, I'll use some empathy, right? That's what we do. And I thought, what can I do to make this better for her? I thought, let's give everybody a coding interview. Make it equal, make it suck for everyone. So yeah, step into my office of Face, Google, Flix. Yeah, step into my office. Sit down. Oh, you're already sitting. Great, great. Let's start this coding interview right now. Can anybody tell me what this is? Anybody? Not a trick question. Thank you. It's a while loop. Right. That wasn't that hard. You guys are pretty smart. How about this one? A little bit trickier. Yes, it's a for loop. Thank you. You're acing this. You're pretty much in the door, like VP of something. But the fact is, code like this, it makes sense to us because we're talented engineers. We spend our lives studying these sort of things. But if I show this to 99% of the world, it's gibberish. It's just a few words on screens and symbols. It means nothing to them. But you and I know differently. We know that these are the fundamentals, the building blocks of programming, of JavaScript, and in the web. And that's what we do here. We build the web. We build a place that is funny and sad and happy and beautiful and weird. Mostly weird. The web is probably 95% weird. The other 5% are cats. True fact. Trust me. But the fact is, we see things like this, simple constructs, and we say, hey, we can build something amazing with them. Just because it's not a lot on the screen doesn't mean it doesn't have the potential, the capability to be great. And that's what a service worker is. At its core, it's just an event-based proxy that lists the 6 events. That's it. It's actually pretty simple. I didn't say easy. It's simple. But what it is potential. Potential to build great things. My name is Jem Young. I'm a senior software engineer at Netflix. I'm also a panelist on the great podcast, Front End Happy Hour. Yes, I'm wearing this shirt, not for branding, just because I spent way too long working on these slides last night. I got caught up. So, yeah, I'm not shilling for my own podcast. Don't worry. Sorry, that was actually a lie. I spent most of the night watching Iron Fist with my friend Harry. That's the truth. But I look out. I actually see a lot of people I know. I see a lot of familiar faces. But I see a lot of people I don't know. Future friends. So as future friends, I find it best to start off with some good random facts about me, like an awkward first date. First off, I love dogs, and dogs love me. Really, I do. Yeah. Clap for dogs. That's cool. Yeah, dogs. Secondly, I also love cats, but cats do not love me. Oh, no, cats need love too. Another fun fact about me. I have seen every single Fast and Furious movie in the theater. I know. I don't even know the storyline anymore. But I do like them. They're brilliant. I'm a really big fan. I see some incredulous looks out there. All right. I will name off all the characters. Luke Cobbs, Letty Toretto, Brian O'Connor, Dominic Toretto, Tyrese, Ludacris, that other lady. Just kidding. That's Roman Pierce, Ted Smith, and Mia O'Connor. I know them all. I'm not joking. But lastly, I unabashedly love service workers. I think they're incredible. I think their potential has yet to be explored, and I'm not the only one who thinks so. Twitter, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Washington Post, Flipkart, they're all using service workers. The best part is you probably didn't even know. Service workers, they just work if you implement them correctly. Today, we're going to start off real slow, insultingly slow. We're going to start off with web workers. I know, you probably know web workers, but if there's one person that doesn't, I'm going to explain it to them. Then we're going to talk about the service worker lifecycle and the service worker events. And then I'm going to talk about some real practical examples. So by the end of this talk, you'll know what all this code does. You'll know what all this code does. I know it's a lot, but you will know it. And don't worry, this is hard stuff. This is really complex things. In fact, this is just one event that a service worker handles, and it's a 30-minute talk. Just one event. We have 6 to cover. So don't worry if you get a little overwhelmed. We're going to go nice and slow. So to start off, service worker is just an event-based proxy. That's it. Pretty simple, right? I can move on. No. Just in case you don't remember what a proxy is, from school and the Gang of 4 Design Patterns book, years ago. Let's go back even further. This is a web page. This is the internet, the whole internet. Glad people got that joke. It's really subtle. And what happens? Web page sends requests out to the internet. Pew, pew, pew. And the requests come back. Pew, pew, pew. Wait. Oh, probably on Comcast, a little slower. And a service worker, what it does is it's a proxy. It sits between the web page and the internet. So the web page sends out requests. Pew, pew. The service worker, a lot like the TSA in line at the airport, they say, "Sir, step out of line. We need to talk to you." And that happens to me a lot. I don't know why. Weird. But that's what a service worker is. At its core, that's all it is, and it's an event-based proxy. That's it. But a service worker is also a web worker. And what's a web worker, you say? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Like I said earlier, a service worker is a web worker. A web worker has been around a while. Some of you are saying that's old news, blah, blah, blah. We know it, Jem. I know, you're probably all much smarter than me, probably not taller than me, maybe smarter, but not taller. Wait, now there's some people, man, not even the tallest one anymore. All right, forget all that. Let's start way back in the beginning. Why do we have web workers? Because of the way that JavaScript works. JavaScript is just a bunch of events. An event happens. We do some work, we handle the event, and then the pain happens. This happens over and over and over and over and over again. And this is known as the event loop. And if anybody's ever heard a talk where they're like, people bandy around the term event loop, trying to sound smart, you now know exactly what they're talking about. And it's important to note that painting only happens in this one thread. That's why it's called the UI thread. So this is actually a great model. It's easy to reason about because everything's just happening one by one by one by one by one. But there's only one problem. What if you, do something foolish and make a long running loop? We've all done this. We've crashed many a browser. If you haven't, you haven't lived. But the fact is this is actually a danger. This is something we run into all the time. And when this happens, the CPU locks up, the tab crashes, and it's just a bad time for everyone. So when we're doing computationally expensive work, such as that while loop, we can't paint anymore. We can't paint, the user gets upset, they don't get rid, you can't make any sales or whatever your commerce site does, and it's just a bad time for everybody. So how do we fix this? Well, the web worker. The web worker runs in a separate thread. So we can do all of our computationally expensive work, we won't block the paint, it just runs and runs and runs and runs and runs and runs. And that, at its core, is what a web worker is. So now, we understand what a web worker is. A service worker is just a type of web worker, but with some added benefits. First benefit is it's completely asynchronous. And what does that mean? Asynchronous means it'll be done when it's done. Career pro tip, if your manager asks you how a project is doing, do not respond with, "It'll be done when it's done." It's a bad move and they will get upset. Not kidding. But it's asynchronous, but that's okay because we know how to handle that, right? Promises. It's all done. We know how to handle this. Secondly, a service worker is HTTPS only. It works on localhost for development, but if you want to throw it out into the wild, you're going to have a certificate. It's not that hard anymore with Let's Encrypt, but it's something to keep in mind. Secondly, a service worker is asynchronous. You can't access local storage. That's a synchronous event. I know, some of you, I just blew your minds. You didn't know it was a synchronous event. It is. If you access local storage a lot, it'll block. Therefore, if it's a reference error in a service worker, it just doesn't exist. Lastly, a service worker is event-based. What does that mean? It only comes awake for events, and then it goes back to sleep. An event happens, it doesn't work, and it goes back to sleep. And that's important to note because that's the essence of a service worker. If you want to do some computationally expensive work, do it in a web worker, not a service worker. But mostly it's events. It's all about the events. There's only 6 of them. Install, activate, message, fetch, sync, push. We're only going to talk about 4 of them today. Sync and push, not ready for prime time, not yet finalized, and they're fairly complex. And this is a practical service workers talk. So let's talk about these events. Install, activate, fetch, and message. 2 of them are part of the service worker lifecycle. That is, the service worker downloads and installs, it waits a minute, and then it's ready to go. But we only have to handle 2 of those, install and activate. The rest just happen. So in JavaScript, how do we handle events? I prefer the cool shorthand, this.onInstall, onActivate. And of course, you just set that equal to function you want to run when that event happens. But if you want to kick it old school, I respect that. You can also use add-event-listener. Also works, function equivalent. You'll see some examples on the web, and I don't want you to get confused. They're exactly the same. So meanwhile, what do we do in these events? We do stuff. And at its core, that's it. That's what a service worker is. We're just responding to events. We're handling events. So that was pretty exciting. I can tell from one person that was really exciting. But let's talk about something even more exciting, something that really gets me going. APIs. I love new APIs. I love making the web bigger and better place. Fetch and cache. New to some people have some experience with them. But the best way to remember fetch and cache is the way I remember is every time I see it, I think fetch and catch, which reminds me of a dog, which makes me very happy. And it makes me a better engineer when I'm happy. But it could just be these APIs are actually just that cool. I'm really, really excited about these APIs. First, let's start with fetch. Fetch returns a promise. Again, everything's asynchronous. And it's used in all modern browsers to make requests. So if you have script tags, CSS, fonts, anything you want to load, it's using fetch in the background. And because it's using fetch, that event can be intercepted by a service worker. So how do we use fetch? Pretty straightforward. Say we want to fetch supercutedogs.com. We fetch it, we handle the response asynchronously. If you want to use async await, that works too. By the way, do not go to supercutedogs.com. It is not what you think. It's the internet. You've been warned. So, yeah, never go to a random URL. That's just, come on. It's 2017. You guys know better. I know people are going there right now. It doesn't matter. But fetch is actually pretty well supported, even by Safari. Yeah, it's pretty much supported by everybody. So fetch is awesome. If you're not using it today, use it instead of XHR. It's much easier. It's much cleaner. What's simple to reason about? Next, cache. We need cache. Cache is the backbone of how we build an offline application with a service worker. So cache, think of it, it's just a map. A map where the keys are requests and the values are responses. But the trick to cache is you can't access a cache directly. You have to use an interface called cache storage. Cache storage, again, also asynchronous. We open the cache, and then we do something with the cache. That's it, cache storage. Bonus pro tip for all of you out there, instead of cache storage, you can just say caches, which actually makes a lot more sense. Caches has caches. Yeah, I know, that actually probably made less sense, but it's shorthand, and I like shorthand. Caches. So at this point, you're probably thinking, Jem, you and your dumb, handsome face, I already know how to build an offline. You gave me the tools right there, fetch and cache. I can build an offline application right now. I don't even need a service worker. I can leave right now. And that's true. But, you know, I had a thought the other day. One was, why is Luke Hobbs so sweaty in all the Fast and Furious movies? Like, it doesn't make any sense. He is always sweaty. I'm not kidding. Watch them all, and you'll see he's just covered in sweat the entire time. It's crazy. Secondly, you're right. We can build an offline application right now, so let's do it. We don't need a service worker. Let's do it right now. So start off, let's have a script tag. We open our cache. We stick something in it. Cache.add is awesome, because what does it do? It fetches, and then it stores it all in one go, one clean interface. I love cache.add. It's a fantastic API. OK, so we have something in a cache. That doesn't really help us right now, because we're only fetching one thing. So let's make it a bit more dynamic. Let's wrap it in a function. Let's wrap it in fetcher. All right, fetcher takes a URL, and then it throws things in the cache. Cool. No, it's not right yet. Because how do we get things out of the cache? We're sticking things in, we're not getting them out. All right, it's going to get a little more complicated. So let's extend fetcher so that if it's in a cache, we return it. If not, We fetch it, put it in the cache, and then return it. All right, that wasn't that bad. It's a lot of code, I'll admit it, but it's not that bad. I got some bad news. It's not done yet. Because that would work for basic requests, but let's say you had an image tag, and you just wanted to fetch something. You want to make this work offline? This won't work. So we got to make our code a little bit more complicated. All right, so fetcher. Now we call fetcher. We convert it to a blob that we can use. We insert that into a DOM. And this will actually work. This will build an offline application. The problem with this is, A, it's not extensible. B, you have to do this for every single file type, your CSS, your JavaScript, all your fonts. So there's got to be a better way. There is. Service workers. I know what you're thinking. 40 slides in, and he hasn't even talked about service workers yet. Here we are. You understand how and why, because the why is just as important as the how. So to start off, we create a service worker. In our HTML page, we say, does service worker exist in window, not navigator? If it does, just register it. That's it. That's all you do to start a service worker. In our service worker, so we're in service worker.js right now, we have an install event. And we need to respond to this install event. So first, we need to wait until. Remember what I said about service worker? It only lives as long as it's doing work in an event. So with event.waitUntil, it takes a promise and it keeps the worker alive. If you don't use event.waitUntil, the service worker can die anytime. The CPU can just kill it. So always have to use wait until if you're going to use an install event. It's good to remember, like, because I've run into this trouble too. It's tricky. So another tip with Chrome DevTools, if you have any DevTools open, the service worker will stay alive. And I didn't notice that first because I was doing all this work and I was like, oh, the service worker's still alive, it's working. Didn't understand asynchronicity and all these things. But no, that's wrong. The service worker will die if you don't wait for it. It's important to remember. So now we know event.waitUntil. Secondly, we open the cache. We're now familiar with this. It's an old trick, blah, blah, blah. I'm boring, caches, blah, blah, blah. I know, nothing sexy here because we've seen it already. Next, we take the cache, we add all the URLs to the array. Cache.addAll, another fantastic method on cache. It fetches all the data and then sticks it in the cache. And what is the URLs cache? It's just an array. It's just an array of URLs. That's it. So now, this is our install event. A little complicated at first, but now it's pretty straightforward. Fetch, a little bit more complicated, a little bit more fun. First, we respond to the event. Event.respondWith is used with fetch. If you don't respond with respondWith, that fetch will just pass right through. Remember, it's a proxy. Service worker only does things if you tell it to. So it'll just pass all requests to unless you use event.respondWith. RespondWith takes a promise. The promise will keep the worker alive, but it has to return a response or an error. It's important to know. All right, so we know RespondWith, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We're understanding asynchronicity a little bit more. What do we do now? Well, first, let's check if that request is already in the cache. If it is, let's just return it. Why even bother making a request? We can save a lot of time with this. But if it's not, it's a cache miss, just make a fetch. There you have it. That is how to build an offline application with a service worker. Complicated at first, but bit by bit, you can build something really amazing. And that's it. That's all there is. But some people out there, I know you're doubting, you're saying, what about the things you didn't already previously cache? And you're right. It gets a little more complicated. Not really. That was a lie. It's actually pretty straightforward. But not simple. A little bit straightforward, though. And we have our fetch event. Again, here we are. Looks familiar. Again, we respond with something. We always have to respond with something. If we don't, that fetch will just pass on through. Next, we open the cache. We have to do asynchronous. You guys get it now. This old habit. I beat it into you until you remember. That's how you learn. Next, once the cache is open, we say, hey, do we have this in the cache already? OK, cool. We'll just return it. No problem. We've seen this before. Nothing new. The new part is down here. First, we make the fetch event. Then, we clone the response. Fun fact about response and requests, you can't touch them in flight. If you touch them in flight, it's done. So you have to clone it before you even mess with it. So first we clone it. And then, because it's all asynchronous, we can return it. We don't have to wait for the cache to open. We give it to the user. They don't care what's going on in the background. After that, we open the cache, and then we stick the event and the response in there. Now that is a fully fleshed out service worker and a fully fleshed out offline application. That's it. That's it. That's the core of service workers. So now we understand the basics. We know all the APIs. We know all the events. We know all about asynchronicity. We know that service worker will only live as long as we respond to an event. So let's do something really fun. Let's build cloud to butts. Why not? You know, I'm on stage and I can do what I want. So let's build cloud to butts. So cloud to butts is sorry, phone call. I'm on call this week, so I got to, it's my manager. Probably ignore him. Yeah, so cloud to butts. Oh, man. All right, we can't build cloud to butts. Let's build cats to dogs. Cats to dogs, yeah, that's PC, right? Yeah. Cats to dogs, easy. In our fetch event, we said, hey, is the URL requesting, is it a cat image? If so, we just replace it with a dog image. That's it. That's fetch. Again, it's so simple, but the things you can do are just limitless. Cats and dogs, totally useful. I know you're going to use it today. So how about something a little more pragmatic, more practical, because this is practical service workers. Let's build an error page. Let's say the user connects to your page, but they want something, but the server's down or something bad is happening. You get a 404 page, a 500 page. We can do that. I'm not even going to walk through this because you know what's going to happen already. We respond with an event. We make that fetch. If the response is OK, we just return it. No problem. If not, we return a friendly, very friendly warning page that says, hey, you're offline. Insanely useful, very practical. Again, all this is happening in one function. We can build amazing things, just things we haven't even comprehended yet. Let's try for a moonshot idea. That's what I do. I'm the idea man. Not the brains, just the idea man. Also the looks and the muscle. But mostly the idea man. So how about something really, really wild? Transpiling ES6, ES 2015 on the client. Ooh, this is fun. This is wild. So we can use Babel. Babel has an independent transform function that we can take a nice, pretty ES 2015 class, convert it into ES5. We can do this. This is a bit more complicated, so everybody pay attention, follow along, stay awake. All right, you're all with me, I see it. First, we have our massive onFetch event. Most things happen in the fetch event. Remember, events go out, the fetch intercepts it, sends it back through. So first, I'm just going to check, is the request that I'm making a JavaScript file? If it is, or if it's not, if it is, but it's not an old browser, or if it's a new browser that handles it, we can just return a fetch. We don't even have to do anything. Why transpile it? If you're using Chrome or Firefox, a modern browser, why transpile? Just send it through to the client. It'll run. But if we're using an older browser, let's say Internet Explorer or Safari, the new Internet Explorer, we have to transpile that code before it comes back. So first, we make a fetch event. Next, we convert it to a blob. A blob is a binary format that file reader can use. File reader, oh man, file reader's kind of old and lame. It uses callbacks. Because it uses callbacks, we have to wrap it in a promise, which kind of uglies up my code, which I really don't like, but we have no choice in this instance. So we wrap it in a promise. Once that promise resolves, first we transform that, and then we return it. And then we return a response. We return the transpiled code. The beauty of this is this is all happening on the client side in a separate thread. They don't even know what's happening. It just works. That's the beauty of the service worker. We can take beautiful ES 2015 code and turn it into ES5 code, if we have to. Now, probably not that practical. There's many, many more caveats around this, but it's just an idea. It's just a moonshot idea, and that's the beauty of this, is that there's so much innovation we can do, and we haven't even touched it yet. That's what I love about service workers. So now, like your parents, I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice, because you're a captive audience. You don't have a choice. First off, don't cache your service worker. You will have a bad time if you cache your service worker. It lives outside of the browser scope, so you don't have to cache it. It just exists. As long as the browser exists, your service worker exists. Don't cache your service worker. I keep hitting that because I've done it, and I've spent hours trying to figure out what I did wrong, and it's really simple, but don't do it. Secondly, know your developer tools. Chrome Dev Tools, very, very powerful, insanely useful. It helps look at your cache. It helps unregister service workers. And so know your dev tools. They've done a really amazing job on pushing service workers forward. Secondly, know your scope. Service workers are scoped to a specific URL. If you don't set a scope like we did in the beginning, it just captures everything, every request under the scope. But we can instantiate multiple service workers for individual pages. But know your scope. This is something I've personally spent at least 3-4 hours on. I was wondering why I'm sending out all these fetch events, but my service worker wasn't triggering, and I couldn't figure out why. It's because I had my scope wrong. It's something you'll probably run into. Again, simple, not easy. My last bit of advice is let's build an open web. Don't build your code so that it relies on service worker, because not everybody supports that. You build it so it progressively enhances. This is not the kind of web we want to build. Sometimes the service worker, it won't load. Sometimes the browser won't support it. What are you going to do if your whole application relies on being offline and the service worker never loaded? So you have to build around that. Build it progressively. Build it with empathy. Build it for everybody. Here are some useful links. Jake Archibald, Mozilla, a lot of smart people have written a lot of detailed things about service workers. And read up on them. This gets really, really complicated really quickly. But still, it's amazing. We can build amazing things with this. Secondly, you're probably scratching your head thinking, man, we're like 116 slides in, and he looks so familiar and I can't place him. That's because I'm actually on the ForwardJS video from last year. This is me wandering the halls, looking lost. Yeah, I didn't really know anybody, didn't have any friends. If that's the case, if that's you today, I encourage you to go out, meet some of my friends. They're really smart people, much better engineers than I am, but mostly make friends. Engineering's a team sport. We build this together. We learn from each other. Secondly, if you're here, you know some React, I recommend Ben Alegbu's talk coming up next. Brilliant guy. He's going to explain all about React and how it works. You're going to get a little bit smarter. Secondly, don't see my coworker. Oh, yeah, Bogdan. If you see, wait, where is he? Yeah, he's right there. He's the one not cool enough to have a black and white picture. Give him crap, lots of crap. Secondly, if you're if you're a React expert, but you're saying, how can I push my code to the next level? Go see my friend Mars talk. Going last, it's an amazing talk. I've seen it. It's mind-blowing. But lastly, here we are, just like the event loop. We've come full circle. We see code and simple constructs like these unlike everybody else. That's why we're engineers. We see the beauty and brilliance and simplicity in everything. And now we see these simple events, we see all this potential, this amazing capability to build beautiful things. We're on the precipice of great things. Service worker is completely unexplored. If you're looking for a chance to make your mark in JavaScript, do it in a service worker. This is going to change the web, I promise you. Thank you.